Welcome to Strip Cover Lit. I'm a little teapot. What just happened?
Adrian, I've found the editing gauntlet.
What?
The editing gauntlet! Adrian, I have all the power.
What do you mean you have all the power?
I control everything.
Shut up, Dalton. Welcome to Strip Cover Lit. I'm the ugly one. Welcome to Strip Cover Lit. I'm jealous of Dalton Gentry. Welcome to Strip Cover Lit. I wish I were never born.
Everything.
What the hell are you doing?
I told you, I control everything.
Dalton, stop it.
Oh, I can do whatever I want, Adrian.
Dalton, you're scaring me. What the hell's happening? Dalton, this is too far. It's
called fan service.
Where are the rest of my clothes? Dalton, I'm really not this dependent on soup. Thank you, though. I mean, I appreciate this. Really?
Tell me how much you like the Dogs of Babel, Adrian.
Dalton, you know, I love the Dogs of Babel. It's the greatest thing I've ever read. Hey, Dalton.
Adrian.
Hold on. I have a peace offering here.
Whoa.
Would you like some scotch?
Yeah, I like scotch. Oh no, Adrian.
All the power is
No,
mine.
we've talked about how... Adrian, seriously, you can't edit. We've talked about this.
I am the supreme editor, Dalton. I have the editing gauntlet. Shake it! Shake it like Shakira! You know what, Dalton? You're right. You're the editor here. So
Never
just don't
again, Adrian.
Don't toy with me. Welcome to Strip Cover Lit. I'm Adrian Fort.
And I'm Dalton Gentry.
And we're here with you today for a reader's review of...
Marvel's The Infinity Gauntlet, a comic book.
A graphic novel.
Graphic novel, we'll go with that.
I think that's a better way to put it.
Yeah, politically correct now, so we have to say graphic novel, not comic book.
Right.
So.
I have a quote that stood out to me.
Yeah, lay it on me.
It is from the Spider-Man portion. Why couldn't I have kept my eyes shut just a few seconds longer? But I didn't. So I ended up witnessing a sight that I'm sure will haunt my dreams for years to come. There was no ominous warning, no one storm cloud, heavenly voice, nor any of the kind of things you'd think would accompany such a cataclysmic event. Nothing. Just half the people down in the square merely vanished. At first I thought I was losing my mind, flipping out. But then the street crowd confirmed the reality of this nightmare. Would you like to rehash the story a little bit so people have a little bit more perspective over what that means?
Well, first of all, I'd really like to take a moment to appreciate it that we've made it to a point in our lives where we can quote Spider-Man. So,
right.
That's an achievement, I think. If anybody goes to school for literature, to be able to quote Spider-Man and get away with it, that is a winner. The Infinity Gauntlet. If you followed the Marvel movies up this far, the Avengers, the Iron Man, Captain America, it is going to lead up to the Infinity Gauntlet. Essentially, Thanos, Lord of Destruction, whatever you want to call him, has come into power of the Infinity Gauntlet, an item which gives him unlimited power and control over anything, essentially. He is bent on destroying the universe, the world, everything that we know. All of Marvel's characters have teamed together to stop him. It's an Avengers mash. You've got Captain America there, obviously, Thor. Spider-Man's in this. The X-Men are in this. It's everybody from Marvel's pantheon. It goes so far to the gods and the titans and every being in the universe is attempting to stop Thanos. That seems to be, I guess, the best summation of things without giving anything away.
Right. Well, one small thing that I would add in is that he is doing this because Death,
yes,
the character Death, feels cheated that there are more people living at this time than have ever died.
Yes.
Throughout the culmination of history.
Mistress Death.
Mistress Death, yes. And Thanos is doing this for her because he is wildly in love with her.
Thanos is doing this for a woman who will have nothing to do with him.
Boy meets girl.
This is the most common story anyone has ever seen set to comic. So what can we say about this? I mean, this is a little different than something we normally do. We usually do heavy literature.
Absolutely.
But we wanted to branch into something else.
Yeah. Comics were a very big part of my childhood and my development as a reader. So that this is something that is very near and dear to me.
Okay.
Were you big on comics as a kid?
I wasn't huge on comics. Throughout college, I did work at a bookstore that sold comics. It was one of the few stores in the city that sold comics. So I became very well versed very fast. Did a lot of reading on The Walking Dead. Chew, if you're familiar, I'm a big fan of Chew. And I did dabble a bit in Marvel, not as heavy. We'll have to get to Chew.
You mean like Red Man, or?
Not like a Red Man, not Dip. No, never again.
Okay.
But anyway, what can we?
Little Levi Garrett. No.
What can we say about the Infinity Gauntlet?
Where would you like to start? Because my notes are kind of all over the place.
I think the first thing that needs to be addressed is the concept of power. And not just power, but power in the Marvel universe.
Right.
Because this is very thematic of Marvel. This is Ben Parker telling us, with great power comes great responsibility. This is the old adage, absolute power corrupts absolutely. Thanos grows wild with power and loses his mind, essentially. He is hell-bent on destroying everything. Nothing is going to survive his wrath. At one point in this, once he has lost the Infinity Gauntlet, he attempts to blow himself up and all the remaining Marvel characters, because if he can't have the power, no one can.
Yeah, that was interesting. One little tidbit along those lines that got me was there's this great line where Thanos is described as wielding the power as if it had always been a part of him. Wielding the power as if it had always been a part of him. That does a lot in a very short time span, right? It tells us a lot about Thanos. It tells us a lot about where this story is going. It tells us a lot about where the story is not going. It saves us the Rocky montage training scene, right? Where he's coming to terms with all these powers.
Whoever is actually going to direct the Infinity Gauntlet, if you're watching this, put in the Rocky training montage. If Thanos is just hitting the speed bag, I'm in it. I'm all about it.
If he's got worlds set up as the speed bag, just pounding through them.
That's awesome. In addition to just power, the character of Mistress Death, we brought her up briefly. I like that character. I love the idea of putting her as a love interest of Thanos, excuse me. But most importantly, you cannot please Death.
Yeah.
Nothing you can do is going to persuade her. Nothing you can do is going to change her mind. Very good underlying theme there. But Thanos is destroying worlds. Thanos is destroying the gods, the titans. And she is still just unmoved.
That's something that I play with every time I read this. I'm not sure if I like it or not.
Yeah.
Because it is so heavy-handed, right? Being in love with death.
Yes.
Right? The nihilist in love with death.
You know, it's cliche. It is. But
when you've got the chutzpah to go ahead and name.
How often are you going to use chutzpah? I'm going to get a chutzpah counter.
You put up a chutzpah counter, and I will chutzpah all the chutzpah.
I appreciate that. But no, and making Death a character.
Yeah.
That's what makes this okay. Death is a person.
Right. And a very unique character as well. There is not a moment when you're reading this Death character that you think, oh, you know, I wouldn't have done it that way. You might have done it differently, but the character Death that is in this story fits extremely well.
Yes.
Right? And really, all of the characters do. That's one of the things that I really enjoy about this, and I'll get into this a little bit in the writer's review. Every character sort of has their moment.
Yeah, I'll give you that, yeah. And, you know, this is a huge blend of characters. This is taking everything that Marvel has created and putting it into one compilation.
Yeah.
And you have to consider the impact that must have had when this was originally published.
Yeah.
Because, let's throw up the spoiler alert now, because we're starting to get further into this. When we see Iron Man beheaded,
That's big.
When we see Thor frozen to death,
when you see Cyclops' head encapsulated in a little cube, when you see Wolverine absolutely twisted to smithereens.
this is huge.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. This must have been just jaw-dropping when it first was published. Now, we're getting it 20, 30 years later.
Right.
So maybe it's not as impactful. We're familiar with how this goes, alternate universe, things are fixed. But when this first came out, we didn't have that yet. The people who are actually purchasing this issue by issue had to have been on the edge of their seat, just waiting to see what was going to happen next.
Absolutely. And that's another thing. As a reader, it's hard to lose yourself in a piece when you know you're only halfway through.
Yes.
Right? Getting this issue by issue must have been so much more enthralling because you didn't see, oh, well, hell, I got 120 pages.
Yeah, he'll be all right. He'll be all right.
No one's going to die for a little while, right?
It had to have been a different moment. And I wish we could have experienced that in its whole. Unfortunately, we can't. That's never going to be a possibility. But I think it is worthy of mentioning from a reader's standpoint.
Yeah, another thing along those lines is, I believe Infinity Gauntlet dropped in 84.
Okay.
Don't quote me on it because I'm not positive, but it was 80s, I'm 99% positive. 84, I am about 50% positive. In that range. Comics were revolutionized in the 80s, and most of that work was done by Alan Moore, V for Vendetta, Watchmen, a lot of the Swamp Thing, revolutionized Swamp Thing. Also, just Google Alan Moore and try not to be amazed. But this is not that. This is not a transcendent of the medium type of story, but it is a very good comic book story, right?
Yeah, I can agree with that. And a lot of Alan Moore's works, The Watchmen specifically, are quite often used in a classroom setting.
Right.
Because you can take The Watchmen and say, without question by anyone, this is good literature.
Has literary merit.
It has literary merit. Now, if you go back to the golden age of comics,
Right.
I could read that and say, this doesn't have a lot of literary merit.
Well, but therein lies the rub, right? One thing I've always said is that a jackass can pick up Shakespeare and read literature.
Yes.
But to be able to pick up Superman number 24
and find the literature, that's what makes you a reader, right? And we wanted to make a point with this to include the Infinity Gauntlet because comic books, graphic novels, whatever you want to call them, manga, however it's pronounced, I'm a little ignorant on that, but we're going to hopefully get there. It's become such a large genre in literature now.
It's fabric of our culture.
It is, right? And maybe that's because it's entertainment, it's mashing with literature. We spoke about this before. But this is where it is now. So we have to address it.
I think it's a very large part of Americana as well. Where would Americana be without superheroes?
Exactly. Superman.
Right, Superman.
Saving
Batman,
the day.
Captain America.
Captain America.
Iron Man.
It's all flawless.
When you get to the 80s, you get a lot of anti-heroes.
And I like the idea of the anti-hero because that gets away from the classic happy-go-lucky superhero, good guy, bad guy. Let's take Batman, for example.
Okay.
Originated Detective Comics, very cut and dry, good guy.
Okay.
Until about the 80s.
Right.
Where we start getting the bad guy. And if you want to look at even a more modern twist, look at the Dark Knight films. The first time we're on screen, we see the darker side of Batman, the darker side of Gotham. That's what makes it good.
Well, I think that is representative of the fact that comic books are often ahead of the cultural curve, right? Batman became dark and brooding in the 80s. It was just in 2004 when Batman Begins was dropped that the dark and brooding on-screen Batman was allowed a spotlight, a moment of prevalence. Wolverine still has not really been given that green light. But it was in the 80s that Wolverine became what Wolverine is, the best there is at what he does, and what he does isn't very nice.
Yes.
So I think that, like I say, it's representative of the fact that that slice of Americana, the comic genre, is very often ahead of the mainstream curve. But the mainstream curve comes back to it. Batman, from the 30s, I believe,
Let's say close to.
and then all of a sudden in the 50s, things start getting more on par with Batman, and then Captain America, right? And then all these superheroes that pop up.
And where if you watch any documentary about comic books, they just start talking, they're just writing down sounds, and we're like, all right, let's put a mask on him, let's make it a character. Because it was so popular, anything that you could come up with, it'll sell.
Mask.
The mask. Let's talk about the ending to this. The overall big ending battle. I know you wanted to mention something about that.
There's two endings, really, to
Yes.
this. Every time I pick this up, I think that it ends with the battle. It does not end with the battle. The battle, I'm not a great big fan of the ending to. It was a bit innovative. I didn't see it coming, but at the same time, boy, it just wasn't the explosion you wanted, right?
Well, see, that's the thing. With such buildup, where Thanos has already destroyed the universe,
Right.
where do you go? The whole Adam Warlock thing, it was necessary, but you do feel a little cheated.
Yeah,
You do.
and that's another thing that I battle with every time I read it, is I keep looking for some other out, but there is none. So you have to make it something semi-ridiculous.
And it feels like you did run a marathon just to see the finish line and get punched in the throat.
Yeah.
It's very disappointing, but it's necessary.
Yeah.
If I'm running a marathon, punch me in the throat. I need that.
With all the cigars we smoke, I don't think it will be a marathon here.
But in addition to the battle was disappointing, but the overall finale, the last scene we're given,
Yeah.
Thanos, stripped of all power, void of everything he has desired, farming.
I thought that was gorgeous.
I think it was gorgeous to the point of that, in my opinion, is worse than death for Thanos.
God the farmer. He is God the farmer at that point. In fact, you're trespassing on something very near and dear to my heart. God suffering a fate worse than death. God is dead. Nihilism, Nietzsche.
Okay.
He is called the supreme nihilist, I think, in this.
He is. He is referred to as the supreme nihilist, Thanos.
That is not really the heart and soul of nihilism, not seminal nihilism. Really, when you're talking about nihilism, there are two strains of nihilism. There is the 1850s through World War I-ish nihilism, the Nietzschean nihilism, and then there's the post-World War I nihilism. Now, to exemplify this, I've got a couple different examples here. Seminal nihilism, I think, is very well encapsulated by this quote from Dmitry Pisarev. "Here is the ultimatum of our camp. What can be smashed must be smashed. Whatever will stand the blow is sound. What flies to smithereens is rubbish. At any rate, hit out right, hit out left. No harm will or can come of it." That is seminal nihilism. This extreme precision of wanting to evolve, right?
Okay.
You try and kill it. If it doesn't die, hey man,
It'll be all right. It'll be all right.
Now, post-World War I nihilism, I think I set that at World War I because of things like the trench poets.
Yes.
Siegfried Sassoon, Glory of Women. "You love us when we're heroes home on leave, or wounded in a mentionable place. You worship decoration. You believe that chivalry redeems the war's disgrace. You make us shells, you listen with delight, by tales of dirt and danger fondly thrilled. You crown our distant ardors while we fight, and mourn our laureled memories when we're killed. You can't believe that British troops retire when hell's last horror breaks them and they run, trampling the terrible corpses blind with blood. O German mother by the fire, while you're knitting socks to send to your son, his face is trodden deeper in the mud. That is the World War I nihilism. Now think of the contrast between those two things. Also, just real quickly, the last couplet from Wilfred Owen's Anthem for Doomed Youth. There flowers the tenderness of patient minds, and each slow dusk a drawing down of blinds. Just that image, I think, is very indicative of the second strain of nihilism. But the reason, I guess, that there is that schism between the two types of nihilism and what nihilism has become to be known now is that, boy, when you hit anything hard enough, it just blows to smithereens. And that's what World War I did to culture. You hit it hard enough, it blew to smithereens, and there's nothing left.
So you have to redefine it.
Yeah.
And that's where we find Adrian Fort nihilism.
Right. Well, that's what's big to me about this novel is that Thanos tries, right? And it turns out nothing withstands the blow.
Yeah.
So he retires to the farm.
Fair enough.
Right,
Fair enough. I'll give you that.
He just goes home.
I'll give you that. So overall, what would you rate Marvel's The Infinity Gauntlet?
Is there another Marvel storyline that you would like to see us do?
What would you give it, Adrian? What would you give it a score-wise, since we got a second?
I would give it probably 84 gems out of 100.
84 gems?
84 Infinity Gems.
You know, I was actually going to say 75.
75.
I was not as impressed as I would have liked to have been.
I think it probably ranked higher for me because I was a comic fan growing up.
That could have been it.
I'm a big Wolverine fan, and there's that moment where Wolverine is impaling Thanos, and Thanos just twists him up like a rag doll and leaves him.
And the nihilist in you just loved that. They destroyed him.
That's my favorite character. Kill the hell out of him.
There you go. I'll give you that. Let us know what you think about the upcoming Marvel movies, and shoot us a comic book, a graphic novel, something you'd like to see a little bit outside of the regular literary genre.
Thank you for watching. Thank you for watching another episode of Strip Cover Lit. It is part of our goal to bring you literature, be that from the writer's perspective, the reader's perspective, be it from film, books, poetry, no matter what. That's part of our goal here.
The best of literature and writing almost every day of the week.
Right. So if you noticed something here that brought value to your writer's life, we'd really appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button.
That really is what pushes us. I mean, we wake up every day, we're like, hey, how many people are actually following? How many people are watching? What can we do here? So make sure you're hitting the subscribe button. Join us every week, actually. Monday, we'll start your week off with a 6 list, get you back into your literary week. Tuesday, we'll hit you with our reader's review. Book review, pretty simple, easy, straightforward. We'll go back into another 6 list on Wednesday. Thursday, we do a little bit of something fun. We'll do challenges. We'll do tags.
Maybe
book hauls.
Maybe a makeup challenge.
A makeup challenge.
A tutorial.
We'll see what's coming. Friday, we'll hit you with a writer's quote of the week, get you through the weekend, make you think. Saturday, we'll hit a writer's workshop of the same book that we covered in the reader's review. And Sunday, we'll try to get our normal lives back in order to come right back on Monday.
So make sure not only that you hit the subscribe button, but that you follow us on Twitter at StripCoverLit, at StripCover.
At StripCover on Twitter, because on Facebook, we're at StripCoverLit.
And on Instagram, we are...
On Instagram, we are StripCoverLit.
I don't have the internet.
I know you don't. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, guys, and we'll see you next time.